All right, we are back for another episode of This Mother Means Business. Today, we're going to be talking about business advice, specifically business advice that really just doesn't work for me as a mom and CEO. I think that there's a lot of business advice out there. Some of it's great, some of it isn't so great. And a lot of it, quite frankly, isn't being served up for people that have little kids. And I'm a person that really tries to manage my sources. Who am I getting information from? And one of the things that I do to manage my sources is to make sure that the people that I am getting information from at least understand this season of my life, or at least can be a filter for this season of my life. And it's something that I've learned to do, and it's difficult, right? You see advice, you're like, oh, well, I can't do that. What does that mean about me? And the truth is, it means nothing. But I think a lot of the people that are creating advice are childless, young, full of energy, and really, there isn't one size fits all. There's not one size fits all business. And I think, part of the reason why, as a business coach, I don't have, people talk about as a signature process is because every human is different and every experience is different. And for me, in this season of life with soon to be 6-year-old daughter and a 2.5-year-old son, my kids, my needs, their needs are ever changing. And because of that, there's not a lot of advice that I see out there that's really and certainly as far as common advice goes, that is of value for me. So today, on today's episode, what I want to do is I want to dive into some of the common business advice that I see, talk to you about why it doesn't really work for me, but also give you the reframe, because I think that's important. I don't want to just have this be an episode where all I do is talk about how bad this advice is. I think what I want is to really be able to share with you how I reframe some of these pieces of advice. And what I'm super excited about is I asked you what pieces of advice you have heard or you've been told, and you shared with me some of those pieces of advice that you've been told that just don't work for you, period. And so we're going to dive in to what those are, and it's going to be fun. I'm excited. Okay, so let's start with this big one. The big one we're going to dive into is this idea of productivity. And I am convinced that all of the productivity quotes, ideas, strategies are developed by 20-something childless men. Why we take advice from 20-something childless men as women with children and all of the responsibilities that come with that, I'm not sure. I've yet to figure that one out. But I want to talk about specifically productivity around this idea of sleep and getting up early in the morning. And somewhere along the way, getting up really early in the morning became the gold standard for productivity as humans. But here's the truth. I am not a person that can get up early in the morning. I have never been a person that could get up early in the morning. I was a competitive swimmer as a child. Butterfly, 100-meter, 200-meter butterfly. Those were my events. I was at a point in my, swimming journey where I was meant to be in the pool 9 times a week. I would have been probably 11 or 12 at the time, which I don't know about you, but I'm really hoping, as much as I love sport, I'm really hoping that neither one of my children end up competitive enough in anything that we're doing anything 9 times a week. But I was meant to be in the pool twice a day. Some days, I think it was like Tuesdays, Fridays, Saturday morning. Anyway, regardless, I was meant to be in the pool twice a week, usually at twice a day, 2 days a week. So 5:45 in the morning to 7:15. Then I would go to school, and then I would be back in the pool 4:30 to 6, 4:30 to 7, whatever. My mother gave up on waking me up for those because when you are 11, getting up at 4 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning to get dressed, to drive to school, like it never jived for me. And I was a pretty darn good swimmer, even though I think I was like ranked 11th in the country or something for 200-meter butterfly. I'm going to have to go back and look in the age group stats from the early 2000s. But I was still a pretty darn good swimmer. I just wasn't getting up. Like it wasn't worth the battle for my mother, which I don't blame her because I know what it's like to get myself out of bed at this moment in time. Like when I get up early in the morning, that's when my head is filled with bad thoughts. If I'm being totally honest. When I own the gym, we'd have a 5:45 in the morning class, and I would have to get up. We live about 30 minutes away from where the gym was, and so I would have to get up. I think I would leave my house at 5, and so I would have to get up at I would get myself up at the last possible second, like 4:40 to roll out the door, grab breakfast, and the whole drive I would be saying to myself, that's it. We're closing the gym. I'm done. I hate mornings. I've always hated mornings. I don't think that it makes me a less productive person. And if you're a person that wakes up at that time and you love 4 a.m., my partner loves 4 a.m. I don't. But I don't think that it says anything about my ability to be productive. Right? If I think about all of the things that I've accomplished in my life, not getting up at 4:30 in the morning, I'd say it's a pretty solid list. I feel pretty good about it. And so, for you, if you're a person that just isn't a morning person, don't feel like that's something that you have to do. But the other side of it is, I was up 4 times last night between my 2 kids. My son was up 3 times. My daughter was up once. So my sleep is incredibly broken. Incredibly broken. My son went to bed at 7. He was up from 9 to 10, 3:30, 5:30, and my daughter was up at, I think, 4 to pee, because we haven't quite graduated to walking ourselves to the bathroom yet at 4 a.m. That is broken sleep. One thing that I try really hard to do is to not let my kids be my alarm clock. I do try to, get up at 6:45. Mine are usually up somewhere between 6:30 and 7. But I try to get up at 6:45 and try to avoid that, my kids being the alarm clock, because I find that to be really jarring. Is when I'm, the first thing that I hear when I wake up is somebody yelling my name, mommy, at the top of their lungs. Or this morning it was, I want out. These are jarring ways to wake up. So I try to do that, but I really don't think that personally that productivity is paired with getting up early. I'm an extremely efficient human, and it doesn't require me getting up at 4:30 in the morning to accomplish that. So if you're a person that has heard that advice, you've heard I need to get up at 4:30. If I'm not getting up early, I'm not owning the day. I don't think that's true. I think if you're a person that likes to get up early, go you do you. But if you don't, then that's okay. Totally okay. Okay. Another one that came up, this was one that you had sent me, was going all in. And this is a really big one in the online space. A lot of business mentors will tell you that you should just quit your job, go all in, invest $40,000 in their membership, their mastermind. And that's the secret to success. I have so many questions about this advice. So many questions. And while I am a person that totally, wholeheartedly believes that you can create whatever you want to create in your life, I also recognize the responsibility that comes with being a mother and having a mortgage and having daycare to pay for and people to feed other than yourself. And while risk is necessary, if you're not taking risks in your business, you're probably going to stay in a very similar place to where you are today. I don't think being irresponsible is advisable ever. And there's a lot of people, and I'm thinking of a few coaches that are coming to mind that are Canadian, that don't have children, who are pushing, if you don't go all in, if you don't stretch yourself to your financial edge, your business is never going to grow. This is bullshit. It's terrible advice. I think the best business mentorship is the one that you can actually afford. I would never personally go into debt, massive amounts of debt, to hire a business coach. I have put business coaching on a credit card. Sure. I have put investments on a credit card and, taken on debt in my business, good debt. But I think that this idea of going all in, you need to quit your job today, even if you don't have a plan, is not always advisable. That's fine when you're, in your 20s and it's just you and you can live on ramen noodles and, you're going to sleep in your wind stream or whatever. Right. But when you have kids, when you have little people that are relying on you and like your job is to keep them feeling safe and secure, they don't need to live in the microcosm of your stress because you've put yourself in that position. And, you're talking to a person right now that quit their job, but I did it when I didn't have kids. And to be honest, for me, a lot of people ask me, well, how did you make that jump? How did you shift from being in corporate to being an entrepreneur? Like, weren't you scared? Like, yes, of course I was scared, but I also have a partner. I have a partner with a union job. They are a firefighter. And so I had security in other places. I had also was a person that had lived within my means for a very long time. And I had saved up a significant amount of money. I also knew that my corporate job would always be there. And maybe not that exact job, but I knew that I could always go and get another job in marketing. I have an excellent resume. I've accomplished a lot of things. I always knew that people would hire somebody like me. And so I gave myself runway, but I also had a safety net in the form of my partner. And, looking back, the risk was really low for me because we didn't have kids at the time. If I were in a corporate job right now, today, and with two little kids, I think it would take me some time. I actually don't think there's anything wrong with allowing your business to be your side hustle. I think at some point you will have to take the leap. You will have to go all in your business. But I have lots of clients that have multi six figure businesses that also have a full-time job. And they have built their side hustle up to a six-figure business. And, for whatever reason, and, this is not my story to tell, these are my client stories, but for whatever reason, they just don't want to leave their corporate job. And that's fine. I'm the last business coach in the world who is going to shame you into quitting your job because somehow that doesn't make you as good of an entrepreneur. So that's another one that, bothers me, is this idea of like going all in. It's one thing to say, yeah, you can go all in when you don't have kids, but if you have the responsibility to somebody else, like, what are you risking all of that for? And I think the important reframe is like doing things that make you uncomfortable. I do think in business, regardless of whether you have children or not, it's your responsibility to make yourself uncomfortable, because if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. And if you live in this sort of like pool of comfort all the time as you build your business, it's not going to grow. Like, I do things that are uncomfortable every single day. Launching this podcast was wildly uncomfortable for me. And things become more comfortable once you push through that being uncomfortable. And so I think the advice that really it should be is not this like quit your job, go all in. It's like, where can you be responsibly uncomfortable? Where can you make an investment that is going to keep your family safe, right? That's maybe a little stretchy, but isn't going to put you at risk. And I think that is really the big difference. So that's another one that I'm not a huge fan of. One that always makes me laugh as an entrepreneur is this idea of like fail to plan, plan to fail. You should always have a plan. And while I agree to an extent, I mean, I'm a strategist. I love strategy. I am coming off a week where my entire family had norovirus, and it was March break, and we were all home, and I think I had about maybe 6 or 8 client calls to take that week. And it all went left. You cannot plan for that. There are some things as a mother and entrepreneur that like you will never be able to plan for. And so I think, when people talking about this, like, oh, you should have this perfectly planned schedule. I map out my entire life from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. That is just not realistic. Like, at any point today, I could get a phone call from daycare that says, hey, Miles has a fever. Hannah has thrown up on the floor. These are both real life situations, right? Like, that could happen to me anytime. And so I think as a mother and entrepreneur, in fact, the advice shouldn't be like, you need to plan your life. It's like, you almost need a contingency plan all of the time. Like, what would happen if? And for me, certainly from the agency perspective, there are other people in my network that also run social media agencies that do things that I do, that if things were to like truly hit the fan, like the wheels are off the bus, we're just riding along, I could call an audible and have them help me. Or, if my clients in my coaching business, they all know that at the end of the day, I have to prioritize my family because it's a lesson for them too. Right? They should be prioritizing their family too. And thankfully, everybody so graciously just rescheduled their calls. And I'm, in a week now where I'm trying to make up for it. But like, you can't, there's just some stuff that you can't plan for. And that's okay. There are going to be things that happen in your life and in your business that like you and hopefully, when I say this, I hopefully these are minor things. It's a lot of minor things that in the moment don't feel so minor, but there's sometimes really big things that come up too. And so, yes, there are aspects of your life that you can try to plan, but I also think that it's so important to have room for imperfection in that schedule, to allow yourself to not be prepared all the time. Because if you try to prepare and control, if you try to be in control of everything all the time, you will drive yourself crazy. I was on a podcast interview with my friend Danielle Steele, and she asked me if I'm always so like zen about these things, and we were coming out of this, we just recorded it yesterday, and we're coming out of this space where like everyone in my house had norovirus, and like what a hot mess that we're in right now. I feel a little bit extra anxious because I haven't been able to exercise. I haven't done the things for myself. And she's like, "Are you always this zen about it?" And it's like, well, like, I guess, because I can't control it. There's a lot that happens that I can't control. And I learned a long time ago that if I try to control the uncontrollable, I will make myself crazy. And so I think, when it comes to motherhood and trying to plan, like, you just don't have control. And so there's sometimes you just have to learn to how do you let go of a situation, but also, what is your backup plan, right? If things like really go left, like, what are you going to do? Who do you have to call an audible? Who do you have to like fill in for you if that's needed? Or do your clients know that, if something goes wrong, you're going to reschedule? And what does that mean for them? What does that mean for your relationship? And so setting yourself up with systems in your business that are supportive, right? That your clients aren't going to get mad at you, or that, you're somehow not going to feel like a failure because things went left, I think is super, super important. Okay. Oh my goodness. I have so many things, and this is going to become the longest episode ever, but we're just going to keep trugging along. Another one that I hear about a lot, and this is, specific to social media, is this idea of like posting 400 times a week and being everywhere and, creating as much content as humanly possible. And it's so interesting because I think when we're starting our business, when we think about marketing, we think about like trying to get in front of as many people as possible requires being everywhere at once. And that's really just not realistic. And when I first started my online business, I followed a lot of people without kids because I didn't really know better. It was just like, okay, well, these are the experts, so I'm going to take in this information. And a lot of it was like simply unsustainable. And I'm in a place now where I have a team. I have a team that helps me create content, like between my 3 Instagram accounts, my podcast, my YouTube channel, my Facebook page, TikTok. Like there's a lot of content coming out for my brand right now, but I have a team. I have a copywriter. I have 2 amazing assistants, people that are creating stuff for me all the time. But certainly when I started my business, like that was not possible. I was not like, even with my 1 Instagram account, if I would create content like 3 or 4 times a week, that was a win. We were celebrating that. But a lot of the people that are giving advice are saying things, there's a guy named Brock Johnson, who I'm actually a really big fan of. He's on Instagram. He talks a lot about growing your Instagram account and things like that. And, he does talk about posting multiple times a day. He, will do, I think he'll do like 2 reels a day. And then the odd day we'll do like 2 reels and a carousel post. So he'll have 3 posts in a day. And the one thing that he does do, and he's, I think, a 20-something childless man. I don't know his exact age, but I'm pretty sure he's in his 20s. One of the things he does caveat though is that he has a team and he doesn't have kids, because, and this is like a rare thing. This is why I appreciate Brock and I appreciate the content that he creates, is that it is relatively rare, because for a lot of these content creators, they're coming at it from this lens of like, well, of course, creating content's easy. Just do it. Well, that's fine if you don't have 4 kids at home, or you don't have kids at home, or you're not limited to your schedule, right? Like my work day for me right now, I try not to get on client calls until 11 because it's really important for me to have time for myself. But it ends at 4. And my daughter is going to be going to a new school next year, and my day is going to be from 9 to 3. That's going to be all of the childless time that I have, which when I have the client roster that I have, and I love them, but when I have the client roster that I have, plus my desire to take care of myself, I don't have a lot of time to be creating more than that. And depending on where you are in your business, certainly for me, I started my online business with Miles at home full time. So my ability to create content was nap time. Also, wait, there's some advice around nap time I got to talk about too, but I had nap time and then breastfeeding. I created a lot of content, a lot of Canva graphics, nursing, because that in itself is a full-time job and you're stuck on the chair. That kind of worked out. I think I did a lot of Instagram stories, strategically placed nursing as well. But the point is that a lot of the advice that's being given by content creators is advice for content creators, not business owners. And there is a really big difference between a business owner and a content creator. And certainly depending on your business, you may also need to be a bit of a content creator in that process. But there's a really big difference. But then you have to take it through the lens of like, oh, I actually have other things to do in a day. Oh, I have a human that I'm responsible for. I have to feed this person, entertain this person, make sure that the development is happening, do the laundry, do the dishes, do all the other things that encompass the mother load. And like creating a whole bunch of social media content might not just be it. So for me, part of why I do the work that I do, and one of the things that is so important as it relates to your marketing, is simplicity. Because the truth is, marketing your business is a lot simpler, more simple. It feels like a weird word to say. It's a lot more simple than people on the internet make it out to be. I believe that, the best frequency on social media as far as posting goes is the one that you can stick with. And for me, creating social media content is part of my job. And I'm in a place now, as I mentioned, where I have a team, but certainly in the early days, posting 3 to 4 times a week on Instagram was all that I had. And I think that it worked out okay, right? I wouldn't be here if it hadn't have worked out okay. And so really, again, when we're talking about marketing and content creation and things like that, managing your sources and trying to find ways for it to be simple. They're honestly the best strategy, the best frequency for content creation is the one that you can stick to. It's not the one that Brock Johnson tells you to do, or not the one that, Jasmine Star tells you to do. Like, these are all incredible people, but they just don't live the same life that you do. And they also have teams. That's the other big one, is a lot of these people that are telling you how often to post also have teams of their own and aren't in that place anymore where they're having to create everything themselves. So huge different there. Okay. Last one I want to talk about is this idea about work-life balance, because I think this is a big one. And I think a lot of productivity folks and a lot of business folks will talk to you about creating work-life balance. But here's the truth. Work-life balance is bullshit. It really is. When you are a mom, a CEO, an entrepreneur, trying to navigate all of the things, what I'm striving for in my life right now is actually work-life integration. It's not balance. Because if I spend my whole day looking for balance, that's literally what I'm going to be spending my whole day, is just searching. Because it's really not possible. And while I'm in a season of my life right now where I have childcare, and I'm super grateful for that, and I have, time to do things like record podcasts and do things like have uninterrupted time, that hasn't always been the case. And if you know my story, you know that I built my online business and my agency with a 3-month-old. So I closed my gym. I had a 3-month-old. I'm at home now building my agency by myself. I didn't have work-life balance. I just referenced breastfeeding and creating content at the same time. There are going to be seasons of your life where you just can't, you're not going to have that separation. And so how can you create a way to integrate aspects of your business into your day-to-day? And now this isn't me saying that I want you to work all the time, because I don't believe in that at all. But I also think that you may not have periods, depending on where you are in your business, you would have like a 5-hour stretch to do work. And then you get to a 5-hour stretch to parent, right? We talked earlier about planning. When I think about this cold and flu season has been rough for so many reasons. But, my daughter is 5.5. She'll be 6 in June of this year. And if she's homesick, she lies down. She loves to just watch some shows because that keeps her happy. And I will park on my laptop next to her and I will plug away at whatever it is that I'm doing while she's watching TV. I don't need to sit there and like hold her hand and tell her she's going to be okay every single second, right? We can do both at that moment. And, I think in the context of a day, you may be flip-flopping back and forth between your role as mom and your role as business owner quite a bit. And I've talked to a bunch of entrepreneurial women about this, and we've talked about the way that we like mentally create that separation. And for me, I wear a bracelet. I'm actually not wearing it right now, so I'm breaking my own rules. But I wear this green jade bracelet that helps me to separate which mode I'm in. So I'm either in work mode. If I'm in work mode, I'm wearing the bracelet. If I'm not wearing the bracelet, I'm not in work mode. I'm in mom mode. I'm in partner mode. I'm in, living my life. I've talked to some other women that like to change. They'll literally change their outfits. They'll go from, okay, I'm in mom mode. I'm in wearing one thing. Now I'm going to go shift into work mode. I'm going to get dressed. I know women that wash their face, that they'll like literally wash their face before shifting into a different mode. But you may be in a place, for me in the course of a day, I flip flop back and forth between mom and business owner quite a lot. Right. The morning happens, I'm in mom mode. Then I'm going to go flip into self-care mode. Then I'm going to go to business mode. I'm going to be coach mode, agency mode, back to mom mode. Maybe in the evening, a little bit more work, and then back to partner mode, back to self mode. And then we do it all over again. Right. Like there's no balance. I just feel like it's such a myth. And, I am a person that strives to work less. This is, something that I'm endeavoring to do, but I'm also a person that cares deeply about my business and my ambition and my goals. And I want to build that business. Now I will say that I try really hard not to work and parent at the same time. I'm not perfect at it though. It happens. One of the things that I'm trying to do is to turn off my notifications on my phone so that I'm in control of that. But, for the most part, if I'm in mom mode, I try really hard to stay in mom mode. If I'm in work mode, I try hard to stay in work mode with the exception of when daycare calls. But, this idea of work-life balance and striving to achieve work-life balance, I just don't know that it's sustainable. It's or sustainable or attainable. And I'm okay with it. And I think, as I grow, as we grow, as our businesses change, as my kids get older, I know that, maybe some of this advice will fit for me. Right? Maybe the day where I have like really lazy teenage kids and they sleep until 10 o'clock, or I know I'm going to have to wake them up every morning before school. Maybe I will start getting up at 6 a.m. and, exercising and reading and meditating and having these, morning routines that are allegedly going to set me up for my day. Right? Maybe I will be able to take a little bit more risk in my business. Maybe I will post more content. Maybe I will like have a little bit more of a plan. Who knows, right? That would be wild. And maybe I will experience a little more work-life balance. But I think that it's okay if you're in a season where it feels like you're doing things wrong. It feels like you're doing things differently than everybody else. And it feels like you're never going to get ahead because you're doing it differently than everybody else. I just think it's so untrue. And, I've talked to women and entrepreneurs who, wanted to hide their pregnancies from, their male counterparts because they didn't, whether they're business partners or people in their business, because they didn't want them to think, less of them, that they weren't going to be able to hack it. They weren't going to be able to be as, as badass and as capable when they had kids. And I think, the reframe is really that it's just going to look so different. And not all of the advice that's out there is going to work from you. I may have said some things today in this episode that you're like, no, Laura, like I totally don't agree with you. I love that advice. I love getting up at 5 a.m. I love making a plan. Nothing out of left field ever happens to me in my household. And if that's you, like, please send me a message. You're a unicorn. I need to know how you make that not happen. But that's okay. And I think with everything with this podcast and everything with the conversations we're having, you taking what's for you and leaving the rest is so important. And that's really what I want to drive home. I am so grateful for you for making it this far. I hope that there was some advice that we debunked a little bit today that gives you a little bit more freedom, maybe takes a little bit of weight off your shoulders. I would love to know, what advice have you heard that just isn't it for you? If there's something that I didn't cover, I'd love to do a part 2 of this episode. So send me a DM on Instagram. I'd love to hear it, and I'll see you at the next episode.